The history of professional basketball is filled with incredible achievements, legendary rivalries, and unforgettable partnerships. Yet sometimes, the same intensity that fuels greatness can also lead to conflict, resentment, and fractured relationships. Few stories illustrate that tension more clearly than the complicated legacy of Scottie Pippen and his long association with Michael Jordan. What once appeared to be one of the most successful partnerships in sports history has gradually evolved into a saga of bitterness, contradictions, and public criticism. Into this debate stepped another outspoken legend, Charles Barkley, who offered one of the most direct and uncompromising assessments of what happens when admiration turns into jealousy and when greatness becomes overshadowed by resentment. For many years, Pippen was widely viewed as the perfect teammate. Playing alongside Jordan for the Chicago Bulls, he helped build a dynasty that captured 6 championships and dominated the NBA throughout the 1990s. Their partnership produced 2 separate three-peat title runs and helped transform the Bulls into a global sports phenomenon. During that era, Pippen repeatedly spoke with admiration about Jordan, describing him as the best teammate he had ever played with and crediting him for elevating the entire organization. Those sentiments were echoed publicly when Pippen was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2010. At that ceremony, he invited Jordan to present him and delivered heartfelt words about how much their partnership had meant to him. However, the narrative began to shift dramatically more than a decade later. In 2021, Pippen released a memoir titled Unguarded. Rather than simply reflecting on his journey through the NBA, the book included several controversial claims about Jordan, the Bulls organization, and the broader history of basketball. In it, Pippen suggested that Jordan's style of play had negatively influenced the sport by encouraging younger players to prioritize individual scoring over teamwork. He also criticized aspects of Jordan's leadership and questioned how the Bulls' dynasty was portrayed in modern media. For many fans and analysts, these comments were surprising because they directly contradicted years of praise Pippen had previously given his former teammate. Charles Barkley was among the first high-profile figures to respond forcefully to Pippen's comments. Known for his blunt honesty and willingness to speak his mind, Barkley did not attempt to soften his words. He argued that Pippen's criticisms seemed less like thoughtful reflection and more like an attempt to rewrite basketball history. Barkley's perspective carried credibility because he had experienced the Bulls dynasty from multiple angles. As a star player for the Phoenix Suns, he famously faced Jordan and the Bulls in the 1993 NBA Finals. Later, Barkley even became Pippen's teammate when both played for the Houston Rockets. Few people had the unique vantage point of competing against both men and then sharing a locker room with one of them. Barkley believed the controversy surrounding Pippen's comments revealed something deeper than a simple disagreement about basketball. In his view, the issue stemmed from a long-standing desire by Pippen to be viewed not merely as Jordan's partner, but as his equal. Throughout the Bulls' championship years, Jordan was widely recognized as the team's leader and primary offensive force. He won multiple MVP awards, captured Finals MVP honors in each of the Bulls' championship victories, and was consistently regarded as the face of the franchise. Pippen, meanwhile, served as an extraordinary all-around player, an elite defender, playmaker, and versatile forward who complemented Jordan's scoring brilliance. For many observers, the partnership worked precisely because each player fulfilled a distinct role. Jordan provided the scoring and relentless competitiveness that drove the team forward, while Pippen offered defensive excellence and the ability to facilitate offense across multiple positions. Together, they formed one of the most effective duos in basketball history. Yet Barkley suggested that the constant comparison between the two players may have weighed heavily on Pippen over time. Being celebrated as the second-best player on the greatest team of an era might sound like a remarkable achievement, but for someone seeking equal recognition, it could also feel like living permanently in another person's shadow. The tension intensified following the release of the documentary series The Last Dance. The series revisited the Bulls' 1990s dominance and highlighted Jordan's leadership, competitiveness, and relentless drive to win. While the documentary acknowledged Pippen's importance, it also reinforced the widely held belief that Jordan was the central figure in the team's success. For viewers around the world, the story seemed clear. Jordan was the engine powering the dynasty, and Pippen was the indispensable co-star who helped make the system work. According to Barkley and other critics, that portrayal may have triggered Pippen's frustration. Instead of accepting the narrative that had defined the Bulls for decades, Pippen appeared determined to challenge it. His book and subsequent interviews included criticisms of multiple figures connected to the Bulls' success, including legendary coach Phil Jackson. Jackson, who won 11 NBA championships as a coach, designed the triangle offense that allowed Jordan and Pippen to thrive together. Yet Pippen's comments suggested he felt undervalued and misunderstood during those championship years. The pattern of criticism extended beyond Jordan and Jackson. Barkley himself became one of Pippen's targets, partly because of their complicated history as teammates. When Pippen joined the Houston Rockets during the lockout-shortened 1998-99 season, the move was supposed to create a powerful veteran trio alongside Barkley and Hakeem Olajuwon. The expectation was that these three future Hall of Famers might make one final run at a championship. Instead, the experiment quickly unraveled. Pippen lasted just one season in Houston before requesting a trade, and tensions between him and Barkley became public. During that period, Pippen made remarks suggesting Barkley lacked the dedication required to win a championship. What made the situation even more controversial was that Pippen invoked Jordan's name while criticizing Barkley, implying that Jordan shared similar opinions about Barkley's approach to the game. Barkley later recalled feeling deeply betrayed by those comments, particularly because they were made by someone he had personally helped bring to Houston. The dispute damaged their relationship and became another example of the growing rift between Pippen and several figures from his past. Ironically, reports later suggested that Jordan himself was uncomfortable with the way his name had been used in that conflict. According to various accounts, he reached out to Barkley privately to clarify that the comments attributed to him did not reflect his intentions. The gesture was seen by many as an attempt to maintain respect between former rivals and teammates, highlighting a contrast between Jordan's efforts to preserve relationships and Pippen's increasingly confrontational public statements. Other basketball legends soon weighed in on the controversy. Dominique Wilkins, one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, offered a balanced perspective when discussing the Bulls dynasty. Wilkins acknowledged that Pippen played an essential role in the team's championships and that Jordan likely would not have achieved 6 titles without him. At the same time, Wilkins emphasized that the Bulls probably would not have reached those championship opportunities in the first place without Jordan's extraordinary ability. In Wilkins' view, both players were crucial, but the hierarchy between them remained clear. The conversation grew even more intense when another dominant superstar entered the debate. Shaquille O'Neal, a 4-time NBA champion and one of the most physically imposing players in basketball history, responded to Pippen's attempts to elevate his legacy to Jordan's level. Shaq used a vivid metaphor to explain his position, comparing himself to a bridge and others to water beneath it. According to his analogy, water might occasionally rise and approach the bridge, but it ultimately remains below it. In other words, greatness has levels, and not every legendary player occupies the same tier. O'Neal also pointed out a practical reality about how teams prepared to face the Bulls during their championship years. Defensive strategies were overwhelmingly designed to stop Jordan. Opponents studied his scoring patterns, double-teamed him, and built entire game plans around limiting his impact. Pippen, despite his remarkable skills, was rarely the primary focus of those scouting reports. That distinction did not diminish Pippen's talent, but it reinforced the idea that Jordan was the central challenge opponents had to solve. Throughout this escalating debate, Barkley continued expressing a mixture of frustration and sadness. He repeatedly emphasized that Pippen had once been one of the most respected players in the league. As a 7-time All-Star and a 10-time member of the All-Defensive Team, Pippen had built a career worthy of admiration. His versatility, defensive instincts, and ability to handle the ball as a forward made him a revolutionary player for his era. Many analysts even consider him one of the greatest small forwards in basketball history. Yet Barkley argued that Pippen's recent behavior risked overshadowing those achievements. By publicly attacking former teammates, coaches, and rivals, he seemed to be burning bridges that had once defined his career. Barkley described the situation as tragic because it involved a player whose legacy should have been secure. Instead of celebrating the extraordinary accomplishments of the Bulls dynasty, the conversation had shifted toward disputes, accusations, and damaged relationships. One particularly telling moment occurred during the Chicago Bulls Ring of Honor Ceremony 2024. The event was designed to celebrate the legendary 1995-96 Bulls team that achieved a historic 72-10 regular season record. Jordan, unable to attend, sent a video message expressing his appreciation and support for the celebration. Pippen, however, chose not to participate at all and did not even provide a recorded message. The absence drew attention because the ceremony was intended to honor the very team that had defined his greatest achievements. Meanwhile, the personal connections between the Jordan and Pippen families added another layer of complexity to the story. Pippen's former wife, Larsa Pippen, was reported to be dating Marcus Jordan, the son of Michael Jordan. While unrelated to basketball itself, the relationship attracted intense media attention and further intertwined the personal lives of the two families. Behind the headlines, however, the emotional consequences of the feud appeared to affect Jordan as well. According to comments from Phil Jackson, Jordan was not simply angry about the criticism. He was genuinely hurt. After spending decades building a friendship and partnership with Pippen, watching that relationship deteriorate was deeply painful. The situation highlighted how even the strongest alliances in sports can unravel when pride, perception, and public scrutiny collide. At its core, the entire saga raises broader questions about identity and recognition. For more than 20 years, Pippen's career was closely tied to Jordan's. The two names were often mentioned together, yet the spotlight rarely shined on them equally. When the Bulls dynasty ended and the players moved on with their lives, the contrast between their legacies became even more pronounced. Jordan's global fame continued to grow, while Pippen's accomplishments were often remembered primarily within the context of the Bulls' success. Psychologically, that dynamic may have been difficult to accept. Being the second-best player on one of the greatest teams ever assembled is still an extraordinary distinction, but it can also create a sense that one's individual contributions have been overshadowed. Barkley suggested that Pippen's recent criticisms might stem from a long-standing struggle with that reality. Instead of embracing the legacy he helped build, Pippen appeared determined to challenge the narrative that placed Jordan at the center of it. Ultimately, the story serves as a reminder that greatness in sports is rarely simple. Championships, statistics, and accolades tell only part of the story. The relationships between teammates, the perception of history, and the emotional weight of competition can shape how those achievements are remembered. In the case of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, what began as one of the most celebrated partnerships in basketball history has gradually transformed into a complicated and often painful feud. Charles Barkley's commentary reflects both the blunt honesty he is known for and a genuine sense of disappointment. From his perspective, Pippen's legacy should have remained untouchable. Instead, the ongoing controversies have created a situation in which the conversation is no longer focused solely on championships, defensive brilliance, or unforgettable moments on the court. It is now equally defined by public disagreements, conflicting narratives, and unresolved emotions. Despite all the criticism, many fans still recognize the extraordinary role Pippen played in shaping the Bulls dynasty. Without his defensive versatility, playmaking ability, and unselfish approach to the game, the team might never have achieved the same level of dominance. At the same time, the historical record overwhelmingly supports the idea that Jordan was the driving force behind that success. In the end, Barkley summarized the situation with a striking observation. When someone allows resentment to overshadow achievement, even the greatest legacy can be damaged. The story of Scottie Pippen serves as both a celebration of incredible talent and a cautionary tale about the dangers of comparison, pride, and unresolved rivalry. It reminds fans that greatness in sports is not measured only by championships or statistics, but also by how athletes choose to preserve, or sometimes challenge, the legacies they helped create.